blockchain technology is the first of its kind in India, used in the regulatory space. So, what was the thinking behind using this technology, and whether any global precedence is there for such a technology being used in regulatory space, and what are the benefits, which you as an organization saw, and for you to use this technology? We've heard a lot about blockchain, we've heard, not in a very positive space per se, it's used in a negative connotation, but to be used in a positive way, it's a big step. So how did you come to that?
Sure. Interesting one. See, sometimes when we talk, or most of the times when we talk about distributed ledger technology, the first thing that comes to our mind is cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, and that's what kind of puts us off, right? But what we are talking about here, and those are what we call as public blockchains, right? And where you have other considerations of energy consumption, or the fact that you are building a public blockchain wherein the security aspects of cryptocurrency come into picture. But the particular thing that we are talking about here is a concept which we call as a permission blockchain, which is wherein the parties who are part of the network actually. So if I were to say that when we were actually presented this particular use case, so this whole conceptualization was actually done by your team. So we had done the conceptualization of this particular use case, that we should be delving into the debenture issuance, security and covenant monitoring as a specific use case, to see how the entire life cycle of debenture issuance, right from the asset creation, mapping of the assets to the debentures, then generation of the due diligence certificate, generation of the listing certificate, and so on, right? See, again, primarily this was not in the core trading or the settlement space. This was again something which was away from the secondary market. It was focusing more on the primary market. So we did not have any specific precedents when we actually took up this case. There were certain proof of concepts that had been done till date across the globe. Euroclear CSD, which is one of the leading depositories in Europe, or for that matter Clearstream, and even the DTCC in US, they had done more of proof of concepts, focusing on very specific use cases to prove the worth or merit of this technology. But there was no full-blown case. The Australian depository had also embarked upon an initiative around 5 years back, but even they had not tasted success. So there were certain, so we looked at all those reports while we were also, deliberating whether we should go with, the conventional centralized technology, or we should adopt decentralized. Two of the things which took, the center stage of our consideration, first was the fact that we are not re-engineering any existing system here. Because the moment you think about re-engineering any existing system, this means that there are certain existing gridlocks, there are certain existing bottlenecks in the system, post which you can have a seamless integration to this entire, actually the nodes, the blockchain nodes as we call them. So see, we were taking more of a greenfield approach as we call that, starting from scratch. Second is, this particular platform is not like a very, it is not supposed to be a very high performant or a low latency platform. So keeping that in mind, that it was focusing more on the institutional market, right? It was a good use case. The only caveat there was that we were looking at a technology which was expected to be very costly. So that's where we started looking at certain products out there in the market. Post our due diligence, we saw that the kind of capabilities that we were looking at building on the platform, which is more like a workflow based solution, leveraging the immutability aspect of blockchain, we said that we would want to go with the open source technology. So we built the entire platform on Hyperledger Fabric actually, which probably is comparatively cheaper compared to when you look at the enterprise platforms of R3 Coda. But nevertheless, I think it paid off. If you look at our overall journey, while the initial few months went into understanding more of the use case, doing small POCs, right, and then building the belief that yes, we can do it. So it was sometime in August 21 when we launched this program. We had our own set of failures while we were building the platform. In the initial, I would say 5 to 6 months, we didn't taste success. In terms, it was a conventionally we have a 3-tier architecture, and we were moving away from 3-tier to a 4-tier, including the blockchain. So So the first use case framework itself, while we were having conversations, the first use case which we were able to securely build was in 5 months. But believe me, once the foundation had been laid, it took us no more than 2 to 3 months to put in place a factory model and start delivering the next set of, I would say, 22 use cases. So by I think March, beginning of March 2022, we were fully ready with the 23 use cases which were rolled out to the market. And so I think overall the journey was a little trickier one, but nevertheless I think we managed. So the first thing, if you look at it, about the excessive leverage of an asset, right? If you do not have a system whereby the asset which is being leveraged for a particular issuance is recorded, then there are chances that the issuer may use the same asset for actually leverage, for actually as an asset cover for any other issuance with a different debenture trustee. And if the other debenture trustee does not have access to those records, then it is quite possible that you end up using the same asset. So it's more like using it doubly or thrice actually for different issuances. Second point which we saw, that the assets, they were not uniquely identified in any manner, or whenever the assets were getting captured in whatsoever system, they were not uniquely. There was a dedupe check which was supposed to be performed to uniquely identify that asset. And if the asset cannot be uniquely identified, again there is a possibility that you may end up recording the same asset again and using it for another issuance. The third issue which we saw was the lack of standardization across the market. So even for a due diligence process which a debenture trustee performs, there are different set of documents and different levels of information which they receive from the issuers or the credit rating agencies or the registries. So due to lack of standardization, also the DTs, the entire process was very cumbersome. Even when you look at the covenant monitoring, there was no digital platform on which the covenants were recorded. Sometimes you simply get a statutory audit note stating that it's all good, but then in some cases you do get Excel sheets, right? But again, that's prone to issues. Then the way the systems has to be designed in terms of understanding that every quarter, every 6 months, every year, you need to perform the required covenant monitoring and to get the required approvals of the DT. The level of details that need to be captured, there are close to 30 to 36 different types of covenants today out there on the platform. So any debenture trustee, when they basically look at a debenture trustee between issuer and debenture trustee, it will be a composite of these different types of covenants. So the level of details which was out there to be captured, that level of detail, there was no standardization for that. And last point was more around the periodic due diligence of the assets. So even there we saw that the way the due diligence was getting captured, in case if an asset gets devalued, right, then understanding that the asset cover is getting breached, right, and alert has to be generated to the debenture trustee and subsequent processes have to be invoked. Those kind of things were actually missing out there, which actually made this a very strong use case for actually developing a platform. Other point was why we went for decentralized this. The idea here is that down the line, so as of now we have built in order to have facilitate the market adopt the technology. We have built 3 super user nodes, as we call them. One for the issuers, one for debenture trustees, and we are hosting. And NSDL is currently hosting those nodes. Over a period of time, we would expect that some of the big players in the market, some of the issuers and debenture trustees, they actually get and establish the node within their own premises. And that's where the way we have designed the whole platform. Because once the data is in their premises, the whole trust that we are talking about in the ecosystem, that trust will automatically see in action.